properly looked into Russian interference in our election, in the FBI or in the intelligence agencies, it means that Bill Barr, on the president's behalf, is weaponizing the Justice Department to go after the president's enemies. I've served for years, I don't anymore, on a commission that would help emerging democracies. And we would always inform the parliamentarians in these democracies, when you win an election, you don't seek to just prosecute the losing side. But this is what Bill Barr is seeking to do. He is demonstrating once again that he is merely a tool of the president's hand, not the representative of the American.
That's the Democrat Congressman Adam Schiff responding to the news that John Durham's investigation is now a criminal one into the origins of the Trump-Russia collusion conspiracy. For more on this, we bring in Joe diGenova, WMAL's legal analyst and a former U.S. attorney to the District of Columbia. Joe, good morning to you.
Good morning.
How consequential is this shift in John Durham's investigation?
Tectonic shift. Very interesting listening to Schiff say when he advises new governments, don't prosecute the losing side. Well, guess what? Hillary Clinton says they were the winning side. She says she won, and she could win again. But here's what's important about the grand jury. This now means, let's all settle down. There will be indictments now. John Durham has been investigating for a long time without a grand jury. What happened was they got so much information that their hands were tied. They had no choice. People are going to be indicted. Now, what do you find out when you do the types of interviews that John Durham has been doing for the last few months? Do you remember the recently revealed in Sidney Powell's filing, Jim Clapper gets on the telephone and says to David Ignatius of the Post, do the kill shot, meaning take out Flynn with the leaked transcript, criminally leaked transcript of the call between Kislyak and Flynn.
Yeah,
now, how does Sidney Powell know that James Clapper said to Ignatius, take the kill shot? This is the stuff of grand juries. She knows that, Sidney Powell knows that, because Clapper was in a car during the inauguration, and he called Ignatius. And he knew that someone that he worked with, Clapper, had leaked the Kislyak telephone call to Ignatius. Who was that person that leaked the Kislyak call? According to Sidney Powell's filing, and according to information we've learned, it was a man named James Baker, not the James Baker from the FBI, but the James Baker who was the head of the Office of National Assessments in DOD. And guess who else worked at the Office of National Assessments? Stefan Halper was employed by them. And so Mr. Baker gives the Kislyak call, according to Sidney Powell, to David Ignatius. Clapper knows that and calls Ignatius and says, take the kill shot now. Who was with Clapper that heard him say that to David Ignatius? I can assure you Clapper is scratching his forehead even more now, trying to think of who was that insignificant person sitting in the limousine with him when he called David Ignatius. This is the stuff of grand juries. There are going to be indictments. People are going down, and that is why Adam Schiff did what he did yesterday. They are now trying to figure out a way to discredit Durham and Barr and the grand jury. Regrettably for them, nothing that they can do now will stop this.
And Joe, just on that point, you were mentioning Adam Schiff. A quote from him in yesterday's interview is that this is tainted because of the motivation. That seems to be the narrative that they're going to be spinning through all of this. How do you think that when it comes to the investigations being released, where we know more, we see what has been found, how carefully do you think we're going to have Horowitz and Durham laying this out? What can we expect as the American people when we do get these reports?
Well, I don't know what Horowitz has done. His job was fairly easy, for heaven's sakes. I mean, look at what he had to do. Was the FISA process illegally corrupted? I mean, what's your guess on the answer to that one? I mean, that's basically child's play. Mm-hmm. What Durham has done is put together a massive criminal conspiracy in violating, which will take on the violation of rights of Donald Trump as a citizen, as a candidate, as a president-elect and as a president, the civil rights of General Flynn, a number of other people. I mean, just the list of victims here in a criminal conspiracy is endless.
I mean,
They'll have no problem doing that.
The fact that Bill Barr and John Durham traveled together around the world for some of these interviews suggests that this is obviously much more far-reaching than simply FISA abuses. But the coverage we saw last week, Joe, when we heard that this is a criminal investigation, Fox News connected it directly to the Michael Horowitz IG investigation. And we also saw John Ratcliffe on with Maria Bartiromo this weekend say it's not a coincidence that the Inspector General report is concluding and is about to be released at the same time that we're finding out that Durham's investigation is criminal. How important do you think is the link between those two investigations?
To do a criminal investigation until FISA was over. I mean, that's no grand story by Fox, for heaven's sakes. Everybody knew there wasn't going to be a criminal case until the FISA was done, because the FISA is just the beginning. FISA is important. It needs to be done, and there were clearly crimes committed in obtaining the FISA warrants. That's a no-brainer. There are people at the senior levels of the Justice Department and the FBI. John Carlin, the fellow who headed the National Security Division under Obama. Mary McCord, the Criminal Division under Obama. All the people at the head of the FBI. All of those FISA warrants were illegally obtained, and everybody involved in the process knew it. That, of course, is a no-brainer. That's the easy stuff. That's a nothing burger. I mean, it's important. It's going to get done. But, of course, it's linked. The FISA warrants are linked to the investigation. But the investigation is much bigger than the FISA warrants, because there was a criminal conspiracy which started in 2016 to take down Trump and the people around him. That is what Adam Schiff is afraid of. And here's the other thing. Remember that leak from the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence by their security director, James Wolfe, who was having an affair with Allie Watkins of the New York Times? He leaked the Carter Page FISA application to her. And he did so, it is now believed by investigators, with the knowledge of Senator Mark Warner. Mark Warner is up to this in his scuppers. And by the way, when you leak a FISA warrant to a reporter and you're complicit in it as a United States senator, you do not have the protections of the speech or debate clause of the United States of the United States Constitution. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. But believe me, just don't get hung up on the FISA warrants. The FISA warrants are just the beginning. They are just a way to go from A to B. The bigger story is the conspiracy.
Okay, I want to keep Joe. Joe, can I keep you around? Do you mind?
Oh, it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood.
Okay, I'm going to keep you here because I want to ask you more. There's that Sidney Powell court filing. You've already mentioned it for Mike Flynn. I want to get into more of the details of it that I think people need to hear about. Just it's always good to talk to Joe. Such good information to sort through. Among the information I'm interested in, Joe, is this past week, Michael Flynn's attorney, Sidney Powell, you already referenced that she filed under seal a brief replying to the Fed's claims that they'd already given Flynn's defense team all the evidence that they needed. And she's like, well, no, there's a whole bunch more we need. And in this brief, it's 37 pages, there are a lot of really interesting things, and it contextualizes a lot of important moments, including the moments that you had Peter Strzok and Lisa Page talking about using CNN's reporting on the existence of the Steele dossier in January 2017, using that as a pretext, that's his word, not mine, as a pretext to interview people around Trump. What did we learn from this Sidney Powell filing?
Well, we learned a lot of stuff. We learned about stuff that we had all, those of us who are following this very closely and have been watching the investigation develop, we learned from Sidney Powell's brief. She makes allegations about Clapper. She makes allegations about this guy at the Office of National Assessments, James Baker. She makes allegations of a whole bunch of people that are in a publicly filed brief with the names of people in them. So what we learned is that from the beginning, prior to the inauguration, that Clapper and Brennan and others were engaged in a plot against a duly elected president of the United States. That is why you've seen Clapper and Brennan be somewhat hesitant and stammering in their explanations of what they saw and heard during this period. What Sidney Powell did was, besides being brilliant lawyering on behalf of her client, she did a major public service by outlining in great detail some of the contours of the conspiracy against General Flynn. But remember, the conspiracy against General Flynn was not aimed at Flynn. The kill shot against Flynn was aimed at Trump. The desire to take out Flynn and to bring down others associated with Flynn was to get the president, not just to get Flynn. And so what's fairly obvious from her pleading is that she has outlined in a beautiful way, in a court filing with the names of all the people involved, the contours of the basic conspiracy against President Trump.
And I know that, Joe, I just want to jump in here. We've seen so much in what you're referring to, but also seen the left trying to destroy the reputation of Bill Barr with the Mueller hearing, and now with this turning into a criminal investigation. We're seeing John Durham's reputation called into question, even though when he was first tapped for this job, he was praised by Republicans and Democrats alike. Do you think that the more damning this report is, and of course we don't know what's there yet, do you think the reputation of the individuals behind it is going to be the tactic that Democrats are going to turn to try to destroy who's behind this?
Well, if the Democrats want to try to destroy Michael Horowitz, a Democrat who they have praised effusively in the past, let them do so. I think that will be a fool's errand. And trying to destroy Bill Barr is like trying to destroy a rock with a plastic fork. Bill Barr is not going anywhere. He's not going to be intimidated by the musings of Adam Schiff. Just watching Schiff yesterday mouth this stuff, you realize you are watching a charlatan, a first-class charlatan trying to figure out a way to weasel his way out of the next rent payment. He is an embarrassment to the House of Representatives. And there's not much you can say about it. I think, of course, they're going to try and destroy the credibility of anybody who delivers a message that they don't want to hear. They've done nothing else but that. They started with President Trump. During the campaign, after he was elected, during the interregnum where he was president-elect, and after his presidency. Remember, they announced they were going to impeach him from day one. So this is not a surprise, and people should not be surprised by the tactics that they're going to use. The problem with going after the Pfizer report and Michael Horowitz, which is going to be part of the basis for the grand jury, is that Michael Horowitz is who he is. They can't change that. He's a Democrat. So, I mean, he's the one who condemned Comey and Strzok and Page and McCabe and recommended the prosecution of Comey and McCabe. Are we to believe that the Democrats think that everything that Michael Horowitz has done is ill-fated and ill-conceived and partisan and politically motivated? What you are hearing from Schiff and others are the musing and the members of the Intelligence Committee on the Democratic side who go out and say, if you don't have the facts, if you don't have the law, you scream and yell and pound on the table.
Right.
The reason they're doing that is because they have no backup. And once the indictments start coming down and the Pfizer report is out, they're going to have to lie so much that it's going to be even tough for the Washington Post to figure out how to report it.
Joe, with just a minute left here, Beryl Howell is a U.S. District Judge. He ruled on Friday that the Justice Department needs to release grand jury materials from Bob Mueller's investigation to the House Judiciary Committee, saying that the impeachment inquiry the House is conducting is legitimate. What did you think of that ruling?
Well, I think that ruling is very, very poorly written. I've read it. The judge ignores controlling D.C. Circuit law on this that was just written within the last year and a half. This is not an official impeachment inquiry. No matter what the judge says, there has to be a vote on the floor of the House authorizing subpoenas and investigations. That has not occurred. In every other investigation of a president for an impeachment, there has been a vote on the floor of the House to authorize subpoenas. In the absence of that vote, nothing that the House Intelligence Committee does with regard to presidential privileges can be effective. So I'm sure Judge Howell was trying to do the best job the judge could, but the judge is simply wrong. And that they will lose on this matter in the Court of Appeals, and if not there, then in the Supreme Court.
As always, great to talk to Joe diGenova. Thank you, Joe.